Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Welcome to MacBreak Studio. My name is Mark Spencer, and the man to my right needs no introduction. Steve Martin, how are you doing?
Good. I'm glad to be here.
And this is actually a very special MacBreak Studio today.
Very special indeed.
Yep. It's our first MacBreak Studio where we're talking about
Final Cut Pro X.
Or Final Cut Pro 10. Version
right.
1.0.
That's right.
Yeah. So welcome. And why don't I just turn over you and let's start talking about this crazy new world of Final Cut Pro 10.
Well, the first ostensible difference is that you have a single window interface. You don't have the multi-window interface like you did in Final Cut Pro 7. They've simplified the interface down to essentially three main areas of focus. Up on the left here is we call organizing, this area called viewing, and then down the bottom we call editing. So you have just three areas that you now are concerned with.
So just to back up for a minute, from Final Cut Pro 7 to Final Cut Pro 10 is really a completely new world.
Completely,
right?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, if you came from iMovie, it pretty much looks like iMovie.
You'd be more comfortable coming from iMovie to Final Cut Pro 10 than from Final Cut Pro 7 in terms of the interface and how things look.
And in terms of workflow, yes.
Right. So big change for folks.
Exactly. Now there's some powerful stuff under the hood, and what I thought we'd do is talk a little bit about how you get footage in and work with it, and then do some other episodes on then organizing and then editing, just like that essentially mirrors the new workflow of Final Cut Pro 10.
Kind of step through from the beginning of how you begin to work with the application.
Exactly. So the first thing is importing. Okay, we want to be able to bring in stuff from a camera or off a hard drive.
Right.
And you can do drag and drop right off the desktop, or you can mount a camera card.
Okay.
And you can import that way. You can bring in material off of a tape-based camera.
That's what I would say. What about tape? They say tape is dead, but I think it's going to be a very long and painful death.
Well, there's a lot of people that still use DV-based, HDV-based camcorders, and there's a lot of those out there.
Yep.
So that's still there. It's still applicable. Before you actually import, I'm going to focus in this upper left area called the event library. You have to start by creating an event. Now, by default...
Okay, wait. Event?
Yes, event. Now, if you work with Aperture or iMovie, you're already familiar with this idea of event.
Events, okay.
And it's the idea of tagging media with a time date stamp, or I should say, all media is time and date related. If you think about it, you record a birthday at a certain point in time, you record this at a certain point in time. Mm-hmm. It's an event. Okay. Right? So the whole concept of event is kind of related to time date stamps of your media. So the interesting thing about events is that it's all organized around this folder structure called events, and makes it easier to manage all of this data that you're going to be bringing in. That's why it's a library. It's like this giant media library.
Okay, so not as only is the whole interface new, the whole way that you manage and work with media is new.
Completely different.
Completely reimagined.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay. In fact, a lot of the terminology's changed.
Right.
There are no scratch disks. There are no bins. There's no browser, but there is a browser, but it's related to looking for media and whatnot. But again, the terminology's changed. Just kind of get used to the new lexicon.
So this is really a new world, and this is a new thing for people to get used to if
Absolutely.
They're coming from existing issues, previously using Final Cut Pro, or they're just looking at editing for the first time. Either way, you're just sort of getting used to a whole new way of thinking about things.
Absolutely. So back to events. When you launch Final Cut Pro the first time, you're going to get a new event. Notice it's got a date stamp on it. That's not by accident. Automatically. So you can import your media into event. Now you can see here, I already have imported previous events here. So each of these icons with a star is an event. And you can think of it like a master folder. It's just an organizational convention. That's all it is. And those folders, like this Reenactors, this thing called My iPhone, and this new event actually exist as folders on your Mac, in your Mac Finder.
Okay.
And they exist in your Movies folder.
And all of your media has to live in one of these events.
Right, it has to live there. Doesn't mean you have to copy media there, but all media at least has to be referenced there.
Okay.
Okay, well, more on that in a minute. Okay, but events are the new construct for organizing media within Final Cut Pro 10.
Got it.
All right, so let's say you do want to bring in import, okay? There's no more ingest, there's no more capture, it's now all import. Now, notice I have the new event selected here. I could rename this event if I wanted, or keep the name. But notice I have an import file, import from camera, either or. So
now
it's interesting. I have, you know, I gotta be careful because this is shiny iPhone. Okay, there's a lot of lights right here, but this is an iPhone 4 and it shoots excellent HD video. I'm going to import video right off my iPhone 4. Okay, and
straight off
the iPhone 4. So it's great. So I'm going to choose import from camera, and it's going to launch it. There's an interface right there. Okay, and you'll notice that up here in the corner it says Steve's iPhone, and it's not showing. What's really great about this is not showing me every single one of my photos, of which I have quite a few. It's only showing me the video that is on on the iPhone. Okay, so it's actually all my HD shots and my clips are there. Most of these are, you know, family related, but I've done some, you know, also some professional related stuff in here. But anyway, here, let me just stop here for a moment. Notice how it's all organized by the date I shot. Again, think events. They're organized by events.
It looks very much like iPhoto.
By the way, here's some time lapse I shot with my iPhone. By the way, just park your space. There it is. There's some cool iPhone.
So you can preview everything.
Preview everything, right? You could select the whole clip like this. Or you can bring in portions of the clip.
Okay, so you can like mark in and out points.
Yeah, you could use the I and the O key, move skim. This, by the way, there's something called a skimmer. It's a little pink line. What's great about the skimmer is you can really, you know, I just move it over the clip and start. Hey,
and you're not clicking. Brian. You're just moving the mouse.
Just moving the mouse, exactly, over the top of it.
Hey, there's Brian.
Yeah, there is Brian. So the bottom line is you can quickly move it over the clip, and then you can make adjustments by trimming. This yellow bracket's called a selection range.
Okay.
So you're changing the selection range. See that?
Now, I just for 1 minute, like you and I have both used Final Cut Pro since version 1, 1999.
1999.
Okay? And for old guys like us, this is taking a little bit to get used to, right? This is like, you know, everything's like I keep kind of shaking my head and trying to wrap my head around it. And I'm getting better, but it takes a little time, right, to sort of get how all this stuff works.
Well, if you're coming from iMovie, it takes no time at all. You just
right.
drag out selections.
You're set to go.
Well, that's the thing is you got to use to it's a lot more mousy, okay, than what we're used to in Final Cut Pro 7. So you're doing a lot of dragging, but again, you don't have to. As I mentioned, you can use I and O keys. You can preview in and out, you know, in to out. There's a lot of familiar keyboard shortcuts.
So JKL, I and O, those kind of things we're used to will all work.
JKL, I'm using JKL right now. It's all working.
So anything I'm kind of used to with JKL and IO, I'm going to be happy. But if you're coming from iMovie, you're going to be happy too because you kind of get the whole
So it satisfies both sets of users. Now I can bring in an entire clip by selecting the clip, or like I said, you can bring in a selection. I'm not going to do that because I've already pre-imported stuff, so we don't have to sit here and watch the import process. But when you're done making your choices, you just click the import selected button and it brings it all in, and it actually brings it into the event. Okay, but if I click this, I'm going to quickly. I wanted to bring this up so you can see what's going to happen.
So here's the options that come up when you're about to import your
exactly.
media.
Now, notice it says add to existing event. So I already pointed out there was an event that already is created by default. Right. Or you can create a new event, okay? And remember, this event gets created in the movies folder, so I can go in here and I could type in time lapse, okay? And it's going to create an event called time lapse, and you can even choose what drive. I only have one drive here, but this is where you can target any drive that's mounted.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and this is something else that's dramatically different in terms of you know, what we used to think of as scratch disks and capture scratch and all that stuff. Very, very different because it's all based on these events.
That's great. And everything that I can, if I had like 20 clips selected from this import window, they would all end up in this time-lapse folder, this time-lapse event that would happen to be sitting on my Macintosh hard drive.
But you could put that anywhere you want.
Yeah, you could choose whatever drive you want to set the event. Final Cut 10 does not care. A couple of things down here. These are basically what we see in preferences, and essentially allows you to do two things with regard to camera. You can transcode, or what we call optimize, and then you can analyze. So in other words, you're going to be looking. It's going to be looking for issues with the footage, and then attempt to, and later you can fix them when you add them to your timeline.
Okay.
So let's just talk about quickly transcoding. These allow you to create what's called optimized media, because let's say this footage was shot, and this actually footage was shot on an AVC HD camcorder, which is like an MPEG-based codec, and Final Cut typically has problems playing back that footage. And so what happens is, in the background, it will turn that footage, the AVCH footage media, into ProRes. And you can you choose optimize, it's standard ProRes, and if you choose create proxy, it's proxy ProRes. And then it points to it. The neat thing is that you can edit right away, and all of this stuff can be transcoding in the background while you're editing.
So you're not waiting for that to be going on. You're just getting to work.
Yes.
So then what happens when it's done? I mean, do you have to like reconnect the media?
No, it happens automatically. Soon as the high-res media or the transcoded media comes online, Final Cut Pro automatically points to it. So,
awesome.
So what you'll see is a performance increase over time as you're working.
As all those get converted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm not going to do that right now, just because I don't want to turn it into pros. I'm going to work with it natively. Okay. The other thing is under Analyze. This is I think the most powerful part of Final Cut Pro 10 is that there's this amazing algorithms that'll look for things like, in this case, Analyze for stabilization and rolling shutter. It'll look for shaky cam. It'll look for rolling shutter, which is a peculiarity of CMOS sensor cameras that you produce kind of a warble look when you pan.
Like shooting on the HDSLR.
Exactly, right. It's because the image is actually being kind of drawn at different times, so it produces this weird artifact. But you can have it look for it, and what happens if you choose Analyze is it doesn't actually fix it. It just keywords it, and then says, okay, this clip is keyworded as a it has excessive shake or whatnot.
Okay, because you might not want it to actually fix it.
You may not want it to fix it.
And it feels like it's controlling you. It's like, no, I'm not doing this for you. I'm just letting you know this is shaky. So if you want to fix it, you can.
Exactly. If you want to fix it, you can. You can also have it to look for balanced color. So like if a shot's too green or too blue or too red, it basically looks at the whole clip and looks for the most neutral frame and says, all right, this is the closest one. Let's go ahead and analyze it and flag that frame as one that we're going to use for color balancing. And also adjust contrast. It's not just color balance. It's a little misleading. It actually improves contrast too.
So does both.
Right, exactly. The other thing too is, and this is really, I think, very powerful, is it has an algorithm that looks for people. So like Mark and I are in a 2-shot and we're framed, I guess, somewhat medium shot right now. So we would be keyword tagged as a medium shot or 2-shot, and it would end up in what's called a smart collection.
Okay, so it's not gonna find my Aunt Carol.
No, it's not. It doesn't. There's no facial recognition.
Like it's not facial recognition.
No.
But it can tell that there's people in the shot.
Exactly.
Okay, and if it's 1 or 2 or more.
1 or 2, I think it's group shot, 2-shot, single shot. You get an organization based on kind of generic, how many people in the shot. Yeah, and it's pretty powerful. Though it's like having your own assistant editor, and all that stuff happens for you. And you sit down, and you go, oh, it's pretty organized.
And it's all ready and organized.
All ready to go.
You start working with it.
You can have it look for audio, analyze and fix audio problems, things like hum. It looks for excessive noise, and there's one other one: excessive noise and loudness. So background noise, loudness, and hum. Those are the 3 it's looking for. Okay, and if the problem is really bad, it fixes them automatically. If it's right on the edge, like I'm not sure if if the computer should fix this, it'll actually allow you to actually get in and change it yourself. So it's more human intervention. So if it's really excessive, it'll just fix it.
Oh, it'll just go ahead and fix it for you. Will. Okay.
Right. And then there's some other things about grouping audio that we don't have to get into right now, but I'm fairly self-explanatory. When you're ready to import, you just click the import.
Would you recommend clicking these like you're doing now? I mean, when people are looking at this, like, well, what should I do?
That's a really good question. Look, if you have the time, why not have it analyzed? Why not have it pre-analyzed so you're ready to go? So all you do is click a button when you add it to the timeline.
Does that take a lot more time to get the stuff in? Because you said you can start working with it right away.
Right away. It happens in the background. Okay. So there's no reason not to do it. I can't think of any reason not to do it other than when something's processing in the background, you can't delete events, you can't move things around until the processing is done. So there are things it can prevent you from doing.
I see. Okay.
But in general, it allows you to keep working.
It generally seems like it's good information to have, and you actually haven't changed anything. You just flag things and then you can decide.
It just writes a single. It basically writes a little tiny, like not a tiny, but it's a file that it's just descriptors.
Okay.
And it puts it in a folder called, what's the name of the folder? It's in an analysis folder. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a separate file in a folder.
Okay.
And it's in the same root folder as your events.
Very cool.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click import. And now it's going to import, and it's going to bring it in. And I'm going to go ahead and close the window. And you can see the background. If I click this little circle here, this is bring up the background task window. You can see what's happening here. It's actually, if I had it transcoding, it would show up here. But notice it's analyzing, and you get a progress bar to show you where things are.
And this is where you can be working, and this is just sort of FYI. You can take a look at this and see all that stuff that's going on in the background. And meanwhile, you are looking at your clips and you're building your rough cut and you're off and running while this stuff's happening.
Yeah, exactly. You can pause, you can stop the queue, whatever you would like to do. Okay, now I've already pre-imported a lot of this, but you can see like it's still chugging away in the metadata, looking for it's still analyzing. But look, there's the clip, and I still have access to the clip. I can make selections, I can play it. The background process has nothing to do with the fact that it's not affecting the ability to play it back or make selections or anything, which is pretty handy. Okay, but now I want to show you about the smart collection of people and shots that we're looking at, the analysis.
So you're throwing out so many new words here to me. It's a little while. So you've got the events, and now we're talking about smart collections.
Right. See, what happens is there has to be some organizational structure. Okay, in Final Cut 7 or legacy versions, you have the things called bins, which are essentially folders. You drag your clips into bins and you name them.
You manually decide what to do.
There are no bins in Final Cut Pro 10. It's all what we call smart collections.
Okay.
And you could see them by these little icons with like the little purple gear. And then you also have collections that are called keyword collections. If I open up, there are these blue icons, and they're basically keyword collections, smart collections. They're all smart collections, but there's collections based around user-defined criteria.
Now, did you create these smart collections and keyword collections, or did Final Cut Pro do it for you?
I created some, and Final Cut Pro created some. Okay, let me explain. Okay, for example, I have an event called Reenactors, and you notice here I have a keyword collection called interviews. Okay, see that? Now, where did that come from? Did I create that? Well, I could have created it. I mean, you can actually right-click or control select this, and you can right-click on there, and you can say new keyword collection, right?
Okay.
Or new smart. You can do that, but I didn't need to because Final Cut Pro is pretty smart. If you import an entire folder from your Mac that's labeled interviews, it assumes that you want keywords interviews attached to every clip in that folder.
Okay.
And then it creates a collection around it.
Okay.
So, for example, if I click the Bob interview and I spill open the clip, notice how it's tagged. It says interviews.
That's interview, and if there were other words there, you'd see them too. Other keywords applied to
keywords,
it.
Right. So what it did is it created a collection around that keyword automatically. So that's a keyword collection.
Yep.
Okay. So so we also have these things called smart collections, and they're pretty much, again, they're similar to keywords except there's more criteria. There's more criteria that are being defined. In this case, the criteria is there excessive shake in the shot? Is it a one person? Like I'm going to click on this item here. You can see this shot of my son Andy. He was keyword tagged as a one person and a wide shot. You can tell it's wide as one person. But notice how
automatically, right?
Automatically,
you didn't do that.
Well,
at
remember when in the import, I checked those as
right.
a checked. It was analyzing, and now it also tagged it as excessive shake. And if I play this, you should see that there's a lot of shake there. See that? It's smart. The algorithm knows that.
So that was shot with the iPhone,
that
right?
was shot with the iPhone.
Kind of hard to hold steady.
Exactly. So
and also made me a little nervous. Don't point that gun over here.
See, I'm standing a little behind him. I know basic gun safety. But by the way, this is how we roll in Arizona.
I can see that.
See that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
protect your property.
Exactly. So we have a one person, and then we have. Notice that Andy, my son, appears in two keyword or smart collections, a one person and a wide shot, because that's what the algorithm returns. So a lot of times you'll have the same clip and multiple smart collections.
Okay.
Because
so the same clip can exist in many, and that's really new and that's really powerful. You have the same clip exist all over the place based on this metadata.
Exactly, based on the metadata.
Okay.
Right. So just to quickly wrap up here, because I know we're covering a lot, is that you can create your own smart collections. So if I select the event, I said earlier, if you control-click on here, you can say New Smart Collection, and there it says Untitled. So if let's say I wanted to do one, called Battle Footage for my Civil War reenactor, I can do that, and then double-click on this, and this window comes up called a filter HUD, and I can define the criteria of what goes in there.
Okay, so because this is not a keyword collection, instead of having keywords assigned to it, it's criteria that you define.
Well, but see, the thing is the criteria could be a keyword.
Could be keywords also.
Yeah, because look, see, the criteria could be text, could be ratings, media type, keywords, or however you can define. So you could say, like, for this smart collection, I want it to be, let's go keywords. I can say keywords. And by the way, it looks to the entire library and said, these are all the keywords that I see right here. Say, I want only items that appear in this battle footage to, let's just say, only this PLVH footage.
Right.
And what I do is go up here and say uncheck and say PLVH.
Just that guy.
Right. And so essentially everything in that keyword collection would that was tagged with PLVH would show up in the battle
and
footage.
You can keep adding more and more criteria. There they are.
There they are. And you can just add more criteria and everything.
Really smart. And it really is this kind of assistant editor thing of automatically creating organization and then allowing you to create very sophisticated organization without sitting there and creating bins and dragging clips around.
Look, the bottom line is it's going to take some getting used to. You know, even for me, I just want to drag a clip into a bin, but you have to literally think differently about how you organize. You have to think about, all right, how am I tagging these? How am I thinking organizationally about these clips kind of ahead of time so they just automatically end up where they're supposed to be?
So it takes a little while to get used to, understand, but ultimately more powerful.
I think so, yes.
Allows you to work faster and more fluidly.
I think this is a much needed feature of Final Cut.
Great.
You know, it's great.
So thank you for that. Where can folks learn more? Because we're kind of looking to you to help us into this strange new world of Final Cut Pro 10.
Well, we released a product called Apple Pro Video Series, Final Cut Pro 10, and it's up on rippletraining.com, and it's just under 5 hours of essentially everything you need to know to get stuff in, get stuff out, edit.
So walking through the whole process. And I have an iPad here. And can I have it on my iPad so I can watch it on here? And,
you can watch it on the iPad. You can sync it with your iPad.
There it is. This might be a little shiny here, but you can see the full interface there and walk through these lessons and learn as you go. Yeah. Steve, great. Thank you. And we will be walking you guys through and having Steve help us understand what's going on with Final Cut Pro 10 in more episodes to come, a little piece at a time here. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching MacBreak Studio.